Well, hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir, just in case you didn't already know that. And I am a CICC, licensed immigration consultant. This channel is all about Canadian immigration news, processes, updates, of course, things you should do, things you definitely should not with regards to your Canadian immigration application. And today's video is about the most anxiously awaited news or update, if you want to call it, from Sean Fraser, and that was with regards to the announcements as to when the hell will the draws start. I mean, we've all been waiting for a very, very long time. We've been wanting to understand when we can, get some information and understanding of what's happening over here. So finally, that announcement was made. Off the bat, I must sort of first clarify that there have been no changes announced in the express entry system. So I apologize if the thumbnail said changes in express entry system and that's what you're thinking, because that's what I was thinking earlier as well. Because yesterday, when the announcement was made for the media release today, it said immigration minister will be announcing changes in express entry. So I was like, oh my God, I'm not sure what this is going to mean. What kind of changes can we expect? Because there have been so many speculations. There have been so many things that we obviously have been anticipating, expecting, that if there were any changes which were going to happen, then they were not looking to be something which would have been pleasant for a lot of people. So we were hoping, against all hopes, that those kind of changes don't come. And one of them is the NOC related changes. Second one is region specific selections. Third one is a new mandate that will come within the express entry to apply for the international students, foreign workers. So all those changes are on the horizon at some point of time. They will all come into play, but we didn't expect it. We didn't want them to happen now. So the changes thankfully didn't happen or were not announced. There are no changes. What has been announced, and we will go through it one step at a time. So if you're looking for the official link, then this was the page. And sorry, the link is in the description box. As always, I will obviously give you the official link. So you can always hop into the description box of the video and you will find the link that has been posted. First thing first, express entry draws will resume, of course. They have stuck true to their word, right? So if you remember that last media release where they said plan to start the draws by the mid of this year, well, they are standing true to their word. So the draws will resume. And what I've done is I've taken snippets of the main points from the media release so that we can discuss them in much better manner here. So the draws will resume in early July. That is the first announcement, or that is the main salient point of this particular media release. Obviously, now we can all start anticipating which date of July. First Wednesday of July is the 6th of July. If again it comes within the 2-week cycle, then probably it's a 6-week July. If not 6, then 13. That is what we will be anticipating as the draws, when the draws will happen. The majority of new applications will be processed within the 6-month service standard. Now, a lot of you are already freaking out that if the new applications will be processed with the 6-month process standards, what is going to happen to the old applications? Well, my friends, the whole purpose of delaying these draws, the whole purpose of not conducting the draws was so that they can clear the backlog which they have created as a big, humongous mess and poorly managed process. But because they'd already created that mess, they had to clear that mess. So they had paused every single draw. And when I'm saying every single, not the PNP, but of course the Canadian Experience Class, the Federal Skilled Workers, the FSTC, Federal Skilled Trade, all these draws were put on hold. And the only reason to putting them on hold was so that they can clear the backlog. Now, as IRCC has also stated, or rather Sean Fraser has stated in the release that, and that is the third point, as a result of the temporary pause, that's what was happening, the draws were not being conducted, the federal high-skilled processing inventory has been cut by more than half. That was the initial plan, that they wanted to cut the processing inventory by at least half in order to resume the draws. So they are saying that they have already cut the processing inventory by more than half, decreasing from approximately 111,900 people in September 2021 to just 48,000 people by March 2022, which basically tells you that the number of people in the backlogs is now only 48,000, reduced by more than 50% now. And this inventory will continue to be reduced by July 2022, allowing them to return back to the service standards that their clients expect, which is 6 months. So for people who are still in the backlog, this is also a good news, which tells you that they are continuing to process the inventory, they're continuing to process the backlogs, and obviously they are at 48,000 now in March. By July, which is another 3 months from now, you would see much more, a better reduction or a greater reduction in the backlogs, and thereby the new draws that will be happening in July. People will still have 60 days to process their documentation and apply. So by the time the new applications start coming into the pipeline, the majority, the chunk of the application, by the time they come into the pipeline, it will be August, September. Okay, so they have all that time in their hands to clear as much as possible all the inventory backlogs. So for people who have been anxiously waiting for their applications processing, the backlogs, and you've been angry and frustrated, well, it's also reasonably good news for you that these processes are happening, the backlogs are being cleared, and it will continue to be cleared. Now, another part of the news which was very, very anxiously being awaited by our postgraduate work permit holders. Actually, I'm a bit disappointed with this particular point, and I'll explain to you why. On the media release, it says, starting in summer 2022, former international students who are in Canada and have a post-graduation work permit expiring between January and December 2022 will qualify for an additional open work permit for up to 18 months, and they are exploring a simplified and expeditious process for this, and details will be made available in the weeks ahead. Now, let me just clarify that this, I'm just scrolling down very quickly because I want to explain this here. The post-graduation work permits expiring between January 31st and December 31st. So if your work permit expired earlier, then unfortunately you have been left out of this particular provision, which I find to be extremely disappointing, because people have got their postgraduate work permits expiring from September onwards. So last year, September, postgraduate work permits expired, September, October, November, December, and whole month of January, because this provision or this facility which is being provided, or this change which is being made, is for people whose work permits are expiring from, or have expired from 31st of January until 31st of December. So they have given a provision to people until December 31st, which is for the whole year. But what about those people whose work permits expired from September till December of 2021? So that is extremely disappointing. I expected IRCC to do a better job than that. At least, give relief to those people who have been in Canada, stuck with their process. They had nowhere to go with the expired work permits. So this is very, very disappointing. As I said, I was hoping for a better relief there. But IRCC is what IRCC is, and they do what they do. And obviously, we'll continue to keep raising these issues, whether through Twitter and other mediums. And I hope IRCC, when they have made this announcement, when they have given the provision to people from 31st of January until the 31st of December, then why not include those 4 months as well and give them the provision as well? But we have to wait and see as and when they happen, as and when they do this. So this the provision or how you can apply for your extensions for your work permit, this will be made available by the first week of June. So by first week of June, you will be able to submit your application. Work permit is already expired. Don't worry. If you could restore your work permit, postgraduate work permit, so don't worry. If you are out of status, don't worry. The provisions will be made for all of this because they've already identified 31st of January. So if you've been out of status after 31st of January, you are on a maintained status, you would have a possibility for applying for an extension of your postgraduate work permit. And because it's going to be for 18 months, you will have now sufficient time to make sure that you get your additional period of work included, so that you can then apply for Canadian Experience Class or any other PNP program that you might be eligible. Okay. Now, the next one is, or rather, the explanation given over here is that more than 157,000 former students became permanent residents in 2021. So that tells you how much advantage, if you are an international student in Canada, how much advantage you have. And if you're in Canada, there is always something which can work for you. And more than 88,000 of them transitioned directly from postgraduate work permit to permanent residents. Obviously, there were these people who got qualified because of the 75 CRS draw, people who were eligible and got qualified under the TR to PR program because they transitioned directly from the postgraduate work permit status to the PR status. So a lot of benefit was given to the international students in Canada, and that's the testament of that. Then from January 1, 2022 to March 31, 2022, this is the announcement that they're making, that they have made over 156,000 final decisions on permanent residence applications. And through these efforts, they have finalized the landing of 113 new permanent residents in the first quarter of 2022. Again, good news in the sense like this shows that they have been actively handling and processing and completing applications. Now, when they say 156,000 final decisions, please note that this does not restrict only to express entry. It could be express entry, of course. It could also be non-express entry, which is a lot of provincial nominee programs. It could also be the caregiver applications. It could also be the business immigration applications. It could also be the refugees. It could also be your humanitarian and compassionate, and all those applications that come under the annual targets for permanent residents. So, but again, at the end of the day, the fact that there was so much of backlog, but the fact that within the first quarter itself, they have obviously stood close to their target and have cleared 156,000, that's a good news. And also the fact that they did finalize the status for 113,000 people who became permanent residents in Canada in the first quarter. Again, good news in the sense like they are sticking to the target, because mind you, for this year, the target is 431,000 permanent residents. If within the first quarter they have already done 113,000, it basically means they are absolutely on target, on mark to achieve this year's target of 431,000 as well. So good on that as well. Finally, the last bit is for the TR to PR applicants. Hold on, before you get all excited. There is no new TR to PR program. I have been saying this ever since the budgets were announced, ever since the targets and plans were announced. There is no new TR to PR, guys. Sean Fraser has very clearly, without mincing his words, has said very clearly. I think there was an interview he did with Red FM very recently. So if you are one of those people who are still under the assumption that there would be a TR to PR, then you should go and watch that interview with Sean Fraser on the Red FM channel, where he very clearly said that they are not looking for any short-term solutions like the one-time TR to PR program that was done last year, because at that time it was needed. It is no longer needed now. So there will be no TR to PR. However, the change that they have made is for people who had already applied for TR to PR. As we all know, more than 90,000 people applied for TR to PR applications within which was opened in the month of May of 2021. And for these TR to PR applicants, obviously, we also know that this will continue to be processed until 2024 because of the backlogs that were created and because of the processing capacity that they have. Now, TR to PR obviously also is one of the reasons why the target quotas for express entry has been cut in half. So, they have to accommodate them somewhere, right? Anyways, so TR to PR, the changes that have been made, one, obviously, it has already been announced that the processing will continue till 2024. So the first thing is that applicants will no longer be required to remain in Canada while their application is being processed. This was one of the requirements that you should be in Canada at the time of application and the time it is being approved. So now they're saying that if you are no longer in Canada, that's absolutely fine. They will still process your application. First thing, it's a relief for a lot of people who probably did not want to be here. They wanted to be with their families because they were separated. So that's the first thing. Second thing is applicants who apply for an open work permit while they were waiting for their PR application to be processed will now get a longer duration. So earlier, if you were able to apply for your TR to PR application, you were able to apply for a bridge open work permit. The expiry date given to a lot of people was until 2022, because that was the initial expectation that they would process it now. Now they are going to be, if you're a TR to PR applicant, you will be able to extend, or you will be able to apply for an extension as well if your work permit is expired. And if you do apply for extension, your validity will be given to you until the end of 2024. Which gives you sufficient time to continue working in Canada without worrying about your status while your TR to PR application is in progress. But the biggest change that Sean Fraser has announced, and I think it is going to affect so many of you out there, and that is that if you were married or if you're a common law partner, and if you had included your partner or your spouse in your TR to PR application, then while your TR to PR application is in process or waiting processing, you will be eligible to apply for an open work permit for your spouses who are outside Canada. Now, this is huge. Until now, this kind of a provision is not available for any other PR application stream. This is the first time they're making this provision. So this is really, really huge. I also hope that they make this provision applicable to the spousal sponsorship applications as well. I'm not sure why they wouldn't give them this provision. So if you're a TR to PR applicant, you will now be eligible to apply for an open work permit for your spouse or partner who's outside Canada if you had already included them in your application. This, my friends, is the crux or the main points of the media release today, for which we were very, very excited. Obviously, the fact that the draws will resume, we are all very happy to hear that. I was really hoping that the draws would resume early. Well, I was gonna, depend, or rather, I was hoping that Sean Fraser would stay true to the fact when he said that they would be resuming the program or the draws in spring, which is now. So it should have happened now. The draws should have happened because they have cut their processing, the inventory. They have already reduced the processing inventory by less than half. They've already said that the numbers are out there, but the draws have to wait. So we have 3 more months. At least now we know that without any speculation, now we know when the draws are going to happen. Now, the only thing that will happen when the draws do resume are 2 things. One, would they do a CEC or a Canadian Experience Class specific draw, or would it be an all-program draw? If it is going to be an all-program draw, it's not a very, very good news for the Canadian Experience Class, because a lot of you who were sitting at 460s and low 470s, obviously 440s, 450s, and Canadian Experience Class were obviously expecting to receive an ITA. But this, if it's an all-program draw, then the scores are going to stay high, probably above 500 for at least few draws. Again, depending on how many invitations are issued in each draw. That you have to also keep in mind that the target quotas for this year is only 55,000 people, but that 55,000 people for this year is already accounted for from the backlogs that they're processing. So this year's targets are already done. That they don't have to worry about. These draws that will happen to accommodate for 75,000 people for next year. So if they have to invite 75,000 people as permanent residents from FHS, federal high skilled categories, you're expecting to see invitations in the range of 50 to 60,000 invitations being issued. The fact that's only a 6-month period over which they will issue these invitations, it basically means the number of draws will be quite, in my opinion, it should not be less. If you say 60,000 invitations over a span of 6 months, that's roughly 8 to 10,000 invitations every month, which gives you roughly between 4 to 5,000 ITAs per draw. With 4 to 5,000 ITAs per draw, in my opinion, at this point of time, it's only a speculation, guys. Okay, don't put a gun on my head. A lot of you come out and doing that because I'm only talking about the numbers, what is available to us. So with about 4 to 5,000 ITAs per draw, the first 1 or 2 draws are going to be above 500. And from there on, it will start reducing. Again, depends on how many people will re-enter the pool, are able to improve their scores. And then for the scores to come down to the 480s will be a bit of, will not be too much because the not too many people there above 490. But once it reaches 480 and then 470, the scores to drop below 480 and then dribble down 1 point at a time. That is where the biggest pressure is, because the pool size between 470 and 480 is very, very high. And also a lot of people tend to get added into that breakdown of the pool. So fingers are crossed. Obviously, July is 3 to 4 months away, and we still will keep our eyes open and see how that progresses. I would have loved to answer a lot of your questions, but some of them are absolutely unrelated to today's discussion. But we are going to be back tomorrow for our weekly live Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup, which is tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please join me then. Then it's an open house. We will talk about all these things that have happened within this week in terms of Canadian immigration, and we will also then answer all your questions and answers. Hold on to them until that time. But thank you so much for joining me. If you are not following us on Instagram, then that's the link. If you wish to make an appointment for one-to-one consultation, then this is the link. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We need to see those numbers going up because we will keep bringing you these kind of updates, stories, processes, changes as and when that they happen. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. And I shall see you next time very, very soon. Oh, actually, not next time, but actually tomorrow. So I shall see you tomorrow, and stay safe until then.